At a family party, my wife announced her pregnancy, not mine, but with my boss. Everyone cheered, expecting me to collapse. My wife's sister said, "We all know your boss have been doing your wife for a year, and you didn't even notice, loser." I raised a toast, smiling, just like I did with your daughter. "You're going to be a grandma. Surprise." Their faces turned pale. Minutes later, the police broke in and the real nightmare began. My name's Jordan Hale, and if there's one thing 12 years of marriage has taught me, it's that silence in a woman is more dangerous than a ticking bomb in a fireworks factory. Clara had been way too cheerful lately, the kind of smile that says, "I'm hiding something that'll make you question every life decision you've ever made." At first, I figured maybe she just found a new skincare routine or finally won her passive-aggressive war with our neighbor over the recycling bin. But no, that smile had layers. And every time she said, "Everything's fine," I felt like I should start digging a bunker. It was a regular Saturday, which in our house meant chaos disguised as domestic peace. Our teenage son, Dylan, was glued to his Xbox, mumbling strategies about dominating the leaderboard, which, for the record, does not pay rent. Our daughter, Ella, was practicing a TikTok dance that looked like a yoga seizure. And me? I was making coffee strong enough to qualify as a controlled substance, mentally prepping for another one of Clara's family gatherings. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Clara, or at least I loved the version of her before she started taking relationship advice from podcasts hosted by women who think boundaries means ignoring your husband. But lately, things felt off. She was humming in the mornings, dressing up for errands, and keeping her phone face down like it was hiding state secrets. When I'd ask, "Who you texting?" she'd smile and say, "Just work." You know how people say trust is earned? Yeah, she was cashing it out like a bad check. I worked for Derek Cole, my boss, a man so smug he could probably win a staring contest with his own reflection. Derek was the kind of guy who wore $800 loafers and said things like, "My time is valuable," while wasting everyone else's. He was charming in that slippery, corporate way, always laughing a little too loud, touching shoulders a little too long, and complimenting everyone's wives a little too often. But still, he was my boss, and I needed the paycheck. The morning of the family celebration, Clara was fluttering around the kitchen like she was auditioning for a commercial. "Everything has to be perfect tonight," she said, rearranging napkins like we were hosting the president instead of her mother, her Aunt Margaret, and her sister Fiona, 3 women who could ruin a birthday party faster than an IRS audit. "What's the occasion again?" I asked, taking a sip of my liquid motivation. "You'll see," she said, smiling that same suspicious smile. "It's a surprise." That's when I knew I was in trouble. In our marriage, surprise usually translated to emotional damage. By 6 p.m., the house looked like Pinterest threw up on it. Scented candles, cheese boards, twinkle lights, the works. I was dressed in the nice shirt Clara picked out, which was code for the one you can't stain with barbecue sauce. As family members started trickling in, I mentally prepared for the circus. First came Aunt Margaret, carrying a casserole dish that smelled like regret and onions. She hugged me like I'd just returned from war. "Jordan, dear, you've lost weight." "Trouble at home," she said, smiling sweetly. "You look tired." "I have 2 kids and a mortgage," I replied. "I've been tired since 2009. Then Fiona arrived, Clara's younger sister and self-proclaimed truth-teller. She was wearing sunglasses indoors and sipping wine like she was being paid by the gulp. Fiona never needed a reason to cause drama. She just considered it cardio. "Jordan," she said, smirking, "still working for that hot boss of yours? What's his name again? Derek something?" "Cole," I said flatly. "Yeah, still working for him." "Someone's got to fund your gossip addiction." She laughed, that fake laugh people use when they're offended but can't admit it. "You always were funny," she said. Pity Clara doesn't think so anymore. That one stung, but I smiled through it. I'd learned long ago that silence was the only weapon that made Fiona nervous. By the time Clara's parents showed up, I'd already had 3 glasses of wine. Her dad, Harold, shook my hand like he was trying to crush my career prospects, and her mom, Evelyn, looked at me with the same disappointment she reserved for undercooked chicken. "Jordan," Evelyn said, "you still at that little job of yours? Still paying your daughter's credit card bills with it?" I said before I could stop myself. Clara shot me a look that said, "Sleep with one eye open." Dinner was tense. Small talk bounced around the table like a wounded bird. I complimented the food, Harold complained about taxes, and Aunt Margaret told a story about a neighbor's colonoscopy that killed everyone's appetite. I tried to zone out, focusing on the potato salad. It was safer than eye contact. But Clara was glowing, laughing, chatting, sipping wine, touching her phone every few minutes. When I asked what was so funny, she said, "Just work stuff." "Work stuff, huh?" "Sure. Because everyone's corporate emails are that hilarious." After dinner, she stood up, tapped her glass, and said, "Everyone, can I have your attention?" I froze mid-sip. Oh no, not the announcement tone. I'd heard that tone before. It was the same one she used when she told me she bought a $3,000 ergonomic couch that felt like sitting on wet bread. Clara smiled, that picture-perfect grin that made my stomach churn. "I just want to say how much I appreciate all of you being here tonight. It's been such a special year." I nodded politely, pretending to care while silently praying this was just another sales pitch for her latest yoga retreat. Then she took a deep breath and said, "I have some wonderful news." The room went still. Even Fiona stopped sipping. "I'm pregnant." The room exploded in applause and gasps. Aunt Margaret clutched her pearls, Fiona squealed, and her mom started crying like she just won the Price is Right. Me? I just sat there, smiling like an idiot while every neuron in my brain short-circuited. Pregnant? We hadn't exactly been active. Between her late nights at work and my 60-hour weeks, we'd been about as intimate as distant cousins at a funeral. My mouth went dry. "Wow," I said weakly. That's great news." She beamed at me, but something about the way her eyes darted toward her phone made my stomach twist. I felt like the punchline to a joke I didn't understand yet. Then, from across the table, Fiona spoke. "Oh, don't act surprised, Jordan. We all know Derek's been doing your wife for a year." Silence. Dead silence. You could have heard a credit card decline. Clara's face turned ghost white, and the room collectively stopped breathing. I looked around, every pair of eyes on me, waiting for an explosion. They wanted fireworks. They wanted a scene. Instead, I laughed. Quiet at first, then louder. The kind of laugh that makes people question your mental stability. I leaned back in my chair, looked at Fiona, and said, "You sure about that?" She smirked. "Everyone knows." "Well," I said, raising my glass. "Congratulations, I guess. I always said Derek was good at taking my workload." A nervous chuckle rippled around the table. Clara stammered, "Jordan, that's not true. She's lying." "Sure," I said, still smiling. "Because Fiona is such a beacon of honesty." Her dad slammed his fork down. "This is ridiculous." I stood up, poured myself another drink, and said, "You're right, Harold. It is ridiculous. But hey, since everyone's sharing tonight, let's enjoy dessert. I have a feeling it's going to be unforgettable." And just like that, I knew my life was about to split clean down the middle, before and after that night. I didn't know exactly how ugly it would get, but one thing was clear. The silence was officially over, and the chaos had just RSVP'd. You ever walk into a room and instantly feel like your very existence ruined someone's evening? Yeah, that's every time I attend a Hale, Winter's family gathering. Clara's family doesn't need an occasion to assemble. They just need a target. And guess who usually wears that bullseye? Yours truly. If sarcasm burned calories, I'd be shredded by now. The Winters women, Clara's mom Evelyn, her sister Fiona, and her Aunt Margaret, could turn a baby shower into a courtroom drama. Evelyn, the matriarch, looked at me the way TSA agents look at water bottles over 100 milliliters. Fiona, the eternal gossip, never arrived without a secret and a drink. And Aunt Margaret? That woman collected rumors like stamps, only with more enthusiasm and less accuracy. The night started like every other hostage situation disguised as family bonding. The living room smelled like scented candles and judgment. There were cheese platters, wine glasses, and that one cousin who always found a way to bring up politics right before dessert. I brought a bottle of Merlot as a peace offering, even though I knew what I was really bringing was ammo for gossip, because if I didn't bring wine, they'd say I was stingy. If I brought it, they'd say I was trying too hard. Lose-lose situation. "Jordan," Evelyn sang, her fake smile so polished it should have had its own Instagram filter. "How's work?" "Still there," I said, matching her energy with a deadpan grin. "Still paying for your daughter's Amazon therapy sessions." She blinked like I'd spoken Latin. Clara elbowed me, whispering, "Behave." I whispered back, "Tell your mom to start it." The thing about the Winters clan is that everything is fine until it isn't. I could feel something brewing that night. Clara was glowing, but not in the "I love my husband" kind of way. More like the "I have a secret and can't wait to ruin your life with it" kind of glow. She kept checking her phone, smiling that guilty smile people wear when their conscience is on vacation. Dinner started civil enough. Fiona talked about her latest business venture, which, judging by her track record, probably involved essential oils and bankruptcy. Aunt Margaret shared her medical updates in graphic detail, and Harold, my father-in-law, complained about inflation like it was a personal attack. I just focused on the potato salad, because at least it didn't judge me. Then Clara stood up and tapped her wine glass with a spoon. Ding, ding, ding. The room fell silent. That sound, to me, is trauma disguised as dinnerware. "I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she said, glowing like a Hallmark ad. "It means so much to have family together." Translation: I'm about to make this about me. Then came the bomb. "I have some wonderful news," she said, rubbing her stomach like a magician about to pull a rabbit out. "I'm pregnant." The room erupted like someone hit the laugh track button. Gasps, applause, cheers. Aunt Margaret clapped so hard she nearly dislocated something. Evelyn started crying instantly, the good kind of tears, the kind that say, "Finally, something to brag about at church." Harold grunted approvingly. And me? I sat there smiling, but inside, I was having a full-blown existential crisis. Pregnant? With whose baby? Because unless I've got supernatural swimmers that survived my vasectomy, something wasn't adding up. I felt my heart race, not from joy, but from the sudden realization that the universe was about to hand me a plot twist I did not order. Clara locked eyes with me, her smile tight, forced. I tried to act happy, I really did. I nodded, raised my glass, and said, "Wow, that's amazing, honey." But my voice cracked like a pubescent teenager. Then Fiona, God bless her chaotic soul, decided it was her moment to shine. She leaned back in her chair, swirling her wine like a Bond villain. "Oh, don't act surprised, Jordan," she said, smirking like she was reading from a script. "We all know Derek's been doing your wife for a year." And just like that, silence. The kind of silence that hits harder than any shout. The air thickened. Forks froze midair. Even the candle flames seemed to pause in disbelief. My brain short-circuited. I blinked once. Twice. The laughter in the room died so fast it gave me whiplash. My wife's face turned pale as printer paper. Evelyn gasped. Harold's jaw dropped. Aunt Margaret looked like she'd just been given front-row seats to her favorite soap opera. "Fiona," Clara hissed, her voice shaking. "That's not true." "Oh, please," Fiona said, shrugging. "Half this room's heard the rumors. You two practically had a couple's retreat at Derek's lake house last summer." My jaw clenched so tight I could taste metal. "That lake house trip. Yeah, I remember it. Clara told me it was a team-building weekend. I stayed home fixing the damn fence while she was out networking. Guess she was building more than professional connections." Evelyn shot Fiona a glare. "Fiona, you always go too far." "Too far," Fiona laughed. "I'm telling the truth for once. And suddenly I'm the bad guy?" I looked around at the chaos unraveling. Harold was yelling. Evelyn was crying. Clara was begging for everyone to stop. And Fiona was playing victim while topping off her wine. The whole scene felt like a live episode of Family Feud, Dysfunctional Edition. And me? I just sat there. Calm. Too calm. Everyone expected me to explode. Throw the table, scream, storm out. But honestly, I was past that. When your world falls apart enough times, you stop reacting. You just start observing, like, yes, betrayal, again. Classic Tuesday. I smiled. That confused them. "Jordan," Harold said, his voice firm. "Say something, son." I looked up slowly, scanning the faces around me. "What's there to say?" I asked, shrugging. "Apparently, everyone here already knows more about my marriage than I do." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Jordan, please, it's not. Save it," I said softly, still smiling. "It's a family night. Let's not ruin the vibe, right?" That smile. God, I could feel it unnerving them. People panic when you don't react the way they expect. Fiona leaned forward. "You're just going to sit there and take it?" "Take what?" I said, leaning back. "You already did the talking for everyone." The silence that followed could have killed Wi-Fi. Aunt Margaret fanned herself dramatically. I, I think I need air, she said, stumbling toward the door like she'd just witnessed a crime. Clara stood there trembling, tears streaming down her face. You don't believe her, do you? I looked at her for a long time, then said, I think I'll wait for the DNA test. Harold slammed his fist on the table. Enough. This is not the place. No. I interrupted, raising my glass. This is exactly the place. It's family, right? The same people who knew before I did. Evelyn whispered. Jordan, please, don't make this worse. Worse, I said, laughing. Ma'am, I think we've already hit rock bottom and started digging sideways. That did it. Fiona stood up, pointing at me like she was starring in some courtroom drama. Don't turn this around on me, Jordan. Maybe if you'd been a better husband. I cut her off. Oh, Fiona, please. Don't start rewriting history. You can't even manage your own life without turning it into a group project. She gasped. You arrogant. I raised my glass higher. To family, I said cheerfully. Because who needs enemies when you have in-laws? No one laughed. Clara broke down crying. Evelyn was fanning her. Harold muttered about calling a priest, and I just sat there, savoring my drink, because at that moment, chaos felt oddly liberating. I leaned back, looked around, and thought, so this is what it feels like when everything burns down quietly. I wasn't planning my revenge yet. I wasn't angry, not yet. But deep down, under the calm, I could feel it brewing. The kind of anger that doesn't shout, it calculates. Because if they wanted a show, I was about to give them one they'd never forget. I looked at Fiona one last time and said with a smirk, Careful what you wish for, sweetheart. Sometimes the calm one's just loading the next chapter. You know that weird stillness after an explosion, when your ears are ringing, the smoke's hanging in the air, and everyone's just blinking, trying to remember what planet they're on. Yeah, that was my living room after I dropped the Lily's pregnant nuke. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The only sound was Aunt Margaret wheezing on the floor beside her wine glass like she was halfway to meeting Jesus. The smell of potato salad and family dysfunction lingered like bad perfume. Fiona was the first to come back to life, and boy, she came back swinging. She lunged across the table like a drunk raccoon, shrieking, You liar! You disgusting! How dare you! I stepped back, because I'd seen this woman drunk on Thanksgiving, and she fights like she's auditioning for WWE. Oh, please, I said, ducking as she grabbed for my sleeve. You think I'd lie about something this stupid? Trust me, Fiona, I didn't have to aim high to beat your family's moral standards. Evelyn screamed, Stop it. Everyone stop it. We're family, Harold yelled. You've embarrassed us all. Clara was sobbing so hard her mascara was dripping down her face like melting asphalt. Derek wasn't there, thank God, but spiritually speaking, his ghost was definitely hovering over that cheese board. I don't know what it says about me that I felt completely calm through it all. Maybe it was shock, maybe it was the Pinot Noir, or maybe I'd just reached that spiritual level of marriage burnout where chaos starts to feel like jazz music, wild, improvised, and somehow fitting. I raised my hands, palms out, like I was surrendering to reason. Look, everyone calm down. We've all said and done some questionable stuff tonight. Clara made an announcement. Fiona added her own commentary. I just followed the theme. Theme? Fiona spat. You've ruined my daughter's life. You're right, I said dryly. Lily deserved better than me. But then again, so did I. Harold slammed his fist on the table. You've humiliated this family. Which part? I asked. The part where your daughter cheated on me with my boss, or the part where I returned the favor? I was just trying to keep the karma balanced. That's when Clara stood up, eyes wild, pointing at me like I was the Antichrist. You're making this up? You're just trying to destroy me. Her voice cracked, and suddenly, the room went from dramatic to downright operatic. Destroy you? I laughed, genuinely laughed. Clara, you're doing that all by yourself. I'm just here for the commentary. Fiona turned on her sister, her face twisted in confusion and rage. Wait, is this true? Were you really? No. Clara screamed. Of course not. Evelyn gasped, clutching her pearls like they were oxygen. Clara. Harold's voice trembled. Tell me this man's lying. Clara's lips quivered. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and right then, that tiny pause said everything. The whole family saw it. The truth had just strolled into the room wearing flip-flops and holding a margarita. Fiona gasped. Oh my God. You really did. She turned to me. You, oh my. How long have you known? Long enough, I said. The signs were there. Long work hours, unexplained hotel receipts, and that one perfume she started wearing that smelled like deceit and citrus. You're insane, Clara shouted, tears streaming down. You're humiliating me in front of my family. Correction, I said. Your family's doing that for me. I'm just narrating the highlights. She threw her napkin at me. You've lost your mind. No, I've lost my patience, I said. My mind's been gone since I said I do in front of your mother. Harold looked like he was about to pass out, muttering, This is unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. Fiona, ever the opportunist, seized the moment. So, let me get this straight, she said, eyes narrowing at her sister. You've been screwing his boss while telling everyone you had the perfect marriage? You really are our mother's daughter. Don't you dare. Evelyn snapped. You watch your mouth, young lady. Oh, please, Mom, Fiona shot back. You raised her. You should have seen this coming. Evelyn gasped again. I was starting to think her gasp reflex needed its own insurance policy. Clara turned on me, voice shaking. You planned this, didn't you? You wanted to hurt me. Congratulations, I said. She cracked the code. Yes, Clara, I wanted to hurt you. After you turned our marriage into an unpaid internship for humiliation, I figured I'd give you a taste of your own medicine. You're vile, she shouted. No, I'm efficient, I said. You brought Derek into our marriage. I brought a toast. Fiona's daughter, Lily, bless her chaotic soul, chose that exact moment to text me. My phone buzzed on the table. Everyone froze when they saw the name flash across the screen. Fiona's eyes went wide. Oh my God, she whispered. She really does text you. I shrugged. She's polite like that. Clara lunged for the phone, but I slid it into my pocket. Relax, I said. It's probably just a reminder about our next ultrasound appointment. Evelyn fainted this time. No joke. Hit the floor like a sack of flour. Aunt Margaret screamed, Evelyn! And the room descended into yet another round of chaos. The thing is, I didn't even want revenge. Not at first. But when you spend 12 years being treated like an optional accessory, something in you eventually snaps. And right then, as Harold tried to revive his wife and Fiona called me every synonym for devil she could think of, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. You're leaving, Harold barked, pointing at the door like a TV preacher. Right now. Gladly, I said, grabbing my jacket. But first, a quick PSA for everyone here. If you're going to cheat, don't do it with your husband's boss. HR departments have long memories. Clara's jaw dropped. You wouldn't. Oh, I would, I said, grinning. And you know what they say, sweetheart. Every action has a paperwork reaction. As I headed toward the door, Fiona screamed, You ruined my family. I paused, looked back, and said, Funny, that's what your sister said about me. Guess it's my turn. Harold tried to stop me, but Evelyn groaned from the floor. Let him go. Let him burn in his shame. Ma'am, I said politely. At this point, shame's a vacation destination for me. Then I walked out. Outside, the night was calm and quiet, complete opposite of the circus I'd just escaped. I stood on the porch, the cool air hitting me like a reset button. For a second, I thought about just driving off and never coming back, starting fresh somewhere new. But then the door burst open behind me. Clara stormed out, mascara streaked, eyes blazing. You bastard, she screamed. How could you do this to me in front of my family? I turned around slowly, folding my arms. You mean the family you used to lie to me about when you said you were working late? Don't act shocked, Clara. You lit the match. I just built the fireworks. I hate you, she spat. That makes two of us, I said. But at least I'm honest about it. She looked like she wanted to slap me, but before she could, Fiona appeared behind her. Don't touch him, Clara. He's already done enough damage. Oh, now you're the moral police. I said. Remind me again, Fiona, didn't your second husband leave you for your Pilates instructor? That's not the point, she shouted. You've poisoned this family. Lady, I said, sighing. This family was poisoned long before I got here. I'm just the one who finally read the warning label. Clara screamed in frustration and stomped back inside. I stood there, hands in my pockets, staring at the night sky. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually, Harold came out, quiet, calm, the patriarch once again. Jordan, he said, voice low. You've caused a mess tonight. With all due respect, Harold, I said, I just uncovered one. Your daughter's been cheating, Your other daughter's running her mouth, and your wife's pretending not to know. I just said it out loud. You could have handled this privately, he said sternly. You think she gave me that option? I asked. She made the announcement. Fiona made the accusation. I made the toast. I call that teamwork. Harold rubbed his temples. You're a stubborn man. And you raised stubborn women, I said. Guess it runs in the family. He sighed. You know this isn't over, right? Oh, I'm counting on it, I said, heading toward my car. The best stories never end after chapter 1. He watched me go, shaking his head. You'll regret this someday. I smiled over my shoulder. Nah, I'm too tired for regret. When I got in the car, I sat there for a minute, engine off, staring at the faint glow of the house. Through the window, I could still hear shouting, Clara screaming, Fiona crying, Evelyn probably calling a priest. It was beautiful, in a twisted, poetic way. I turned the ignition, rolled down the window, and said quietly to myself, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens when you underestimate the quiet guy. I drove off, not toward home, because honestly, I wasn't sure what that meant anymore, but toward the only diner in town that stayed open late. I ordered pancakes, bacon, and a cup of coffee strong enough to dissolve my conscience. The waitress, a woman named June with too much eyeliner and zero patience, gave me a curious look. Rough night? She asked. I laughed. You could say that. Wife trouble, she guessed. Something like that, I said. Family dinner gone nuclear. She poured my coffee. You look like a man who finally said what he needed to say. Yeah, I said, stirring in sugar. I finally did. She smirked. Good for you. Most men don't. Trust me, I said, taking a sip. Most men shouldn't. When I finally left the diner, the sun was just beginning to creep up, painting the sky with that kind of soft orange light that makes you forget how ugly life can get. I leaned against my car, took a deep breath, and laughed softly. Somewhere behind me, Clara was probably plotting her next move, Fiona was probably interrogating her daughter, and Derek, well, Derek was definitely checking his email. But me? I was done playing the fool. As I drove into the sunrise, windows down, I muttered to myself, they wanted chaos? I'll give them an encore. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. If you've ever wondered what absolute rock bottom looks like, it's standing outside your in-laws' house at 9:17 p.m., watching blue and red lights bounce off the front windows while Aunt Margaret is still passed out in the potato salad. Yep, that's where I was. A proud moment for the Hale legacy. Someone in that circus had called the cops, probably a concerned neighbor who heard the screaming, or maybe Evelyn, who thought she could summon divine intervention via 911. Either way, when the patrol car pulled up, I actually laughed. Because why not? Once the cops arrive, you've officially reached the this can't get worse stage of life. The car doors opened, and out stepped 2 officers straight out of a buddy cop sitcom. The older one, gray hair and permanent frown lines, looked like he'd seen things, divorces, custody battles, PDA, fights gone violent. The younger one, Officer Mendez, couldn't have been older than 26, and he already had that rookie enthusiasm people lose right after their first domestic dispute call. He looked around the yard, then at me. Evening, sir. We got reports of a disturbance. Disturbance? I repeated, nodding. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Family dinner gone off script. He blinked, hand resting on his belt. Mind telling me what happened? Before I could answer, the front door flew open, and Fiona stormed out, finger already locked and loaded. There he is. Arrest him. The older officer sighed, muttering, Here we go again. Ma'am, he said patiently. What exactly did he do? Fiona looked ready to explode. He's sleeping with my daughter. He got her pregnant. The younger cop's eyebrows shot up. Okay. He turned to me. That true? I shrugged. Depends. You guys handle paternity cases now. Don't you joke, Fiona shouted. He's a liar and a psychopath. Fiona, I said calmly. If you're going to insult me, at least rotate the adjectives. You've used psychopath 4 times tonight, and it's losing impact. That's when Clara appeared in the doorway, face blotchy, eyes puffy. He ruined everything, she cried. He's lying. He's trying to humiliate me. The older officer rubbed his temples. Ma'am, please, one at a time. Then, from behind her, Harold shouted. He humiliated our entire family. And Evelyn screamed. He brought the devil into my house. I turned to the officers, deadpan. See? Just your average suburban barbecue. The older one sighed deeply, like he regretted every career decision that led him here. Sir, step aside for a second, please. We're going to need statements. Sure, I said, stepping onto the porch. You might want to bring backup. There's enough crazy in there to fill a police academy. They separated us like it was a middle school brawl. I sat on the porch railing, explaining my version of events to Officer Mendez while the older guy, Officer Turner, tried to wrangle the screaming herd inside. So let me get this straight, Mendez said, flipping through his notepad. Your wife's pregnant with your boss's baby, and you're saying her niece is pregnant with yours? Yep, I said, sipping what was left of my drink. We're one DNA test away from a reality show. He blinked. You people need therapy. Already tried that, I said. The therapist quit after 2 sessions. Said we were her retirement plan. He snorted, clearly trying not to laugh. This is insane. Tell me about it, I said. All I wanted was a quiet dinner. Next thing I know, I'm in an episode of Law and Order, Family Unit. Inside, the shouting got louder. I heard Fiona scream, "You're a disgrace, Clara," and Clara yell, "You're just jealous because someone wanted me." Evelyn sobbed something about damnation, and Harold was shouting about property damage because I'd apparently cracked the marble floor when I dropped my glass earlier. Officer Turner emerged from the chaos, his patience looking about 3 seconds from collapse. Mr. Hale, he said wearily, we've got conflicting stories. Let me guess, I said. They said I started it. They said you made a malicious announcement designed to incite emotional harm. He replied, reading from his notebook. Wow, I said, impressed. They've been watching Judge Judy. Is there any truth to what you said about the pregnancy? He asked carefully. Yep, I said. Everything I said was true. And before you ask, I've got the receipts, literally. I pulled out my phone and showed him a few texts, nothing explicit, just enough to prove I wasn't making things up. Mendez leaned over to peek. Oh damn, he muttered. Turner shot him a look. Officer, I said, don't worry. I'm not pressing charges. Just processing trauma with style. Turner sighed again. All right, Mr. Hale, look. No one's being arrested tonight. It's just chaos. But I'd advise you to leave for the evening, cool off, and handle this privately. I nodded. Trust me, officer, I was halfway out the door before the credits rolled. Mendez grinned. Mind if I ask, what exactly triggered all this? I chuckled darkly. My wife made a big announcement she's pregnant. Then her sister dropped the plot twist that it's not mine. Then I made my own announcement that I knocked up her niece. You know, basic dinner conversation. Mendez blinked twice. Sir, are you sure you're not filming something? I wish, I said. I'd be rich by now. Inside, there was another crash, glass, maybe a vase. Turner looked over his shoulder, muttering, Jesus Christ, before heading back in. I sat quietly for a minute, staring out at the yard. The same yard where I'd mowed the grass every summer, built the deck, hosted birthdays, tolerated holidays. And now, thanks to one night, it was officially the scene of a scandal that'd make TMZ blush. Clara stormed out again, makeup streaked, eyes blazing. You're leaving, she shouted, pointing toward the driveway. Right now. I gave her a lazy salute. Already planned on it. But thanks for the push, sweetheart. You've destroyed everything, she yelled. My reputation, my family. Oh, please, I interrupted. You were doing fine destroying that without my help. I just sped up the timeline. She looked like she wanted to hit me, but Mendez stepped between us. Ma'am, please. Let's all just calm down. Calm down, she repeated hysterically. He's a lunatic. Mendez turned to me. Sir, maybe it's best if you don't provoke her. Who, me? I said, hand to my chest. I'm the picture of restraint. Jordan, Clara screamed. You're heartless. Correction, I said. I had a heart. Then it tried to love you. She gasped like I'd slapped her, which, honestly, was fair. But I was beyond caring. I was out of empathy and running purely on caffeine and spite. Officer Turner reappeared, rubbing his forehead. All right, he said. Mr. Hale, can we arrange for you to leave peacefully? Absolutely, I said, walking down the steps. I'm practically a walking peace treaty right now. Fiona, from the doorway, screamed, Don't come near my daughter again, you creep. I turned and smiled. Oh, don't worry, Fiona. You'll be too busy explaining tonight's headlines to worry about me. You're disgusting, she shouted. Thank you, I said. But the real credit goes to this family. You people could ruin a baptism. Turner muttered under his breath. I've seen bar fights calmer than this. As I reached my car, Evelyn called out from behind Harold. Jordan, you'll burn in hell for this. I grinned. If it means I don't have to spend eternity with this family, ma'am, that's starting to sound like heaven. Mendez actually snorted before quickly pretending to cough. Sir, he said, please drive safe. I'm safer away from here, I said, starting the car. But as I reversed out of the driveway, I saw something that stopped me cold. Clara's phone, still in her hand, lighting up again with Derek's name. The preview line read, "Tell them I'm sorry. This got out of control." I laughed out loud, the sound more bitter than amused. Yeah, I muttered. Out of control. That's one way to describe it. Turner tapped on my window. Everything okay, Mr. Hale? Peachy, I said, rolling it down. You ever wonder what it feels like to watch your whole life implode in HD? He gave me that look cops give people they know are having a breakdown, but can't legally stop from leaving. Take care of yourself, son, he said quietly. And maybe, find a good lawyer. Working on it, I said. Got one on speed dial. Divorce attorney, not criminal. Yet. Then I drove off into the night, headlights cutting through the dark suburban streets. I didn't go home right away. I just drove. Past the grocery store where Clara once made me wait 2 hours for just milk, past Derek's office building that now looked like a crime scene in my brain, past every corner of town that used to feel normal. By the time I pulled into a cheap motel off the highway, it was past midnight. The neon sign buzzed, half-lit, reading Vacant Y. How poetic. I checked in under my real name because, honestly, who was coming after me? Harold with a Bible? I threw my bag down on the creaky bed, stared at the ceiling, and laughed until I cried. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Clara, it was Lily. Lily, I heard what happened. Are you okay? Me, define okay. Lily, they're saying you went crazy. Me, nah? I went honest. There's a difference. She sent a typing bubble that came and went 3 times before finally sending. You didn't deserve that. I stared at that text for a while. Then I typed back, thanks. But maybe I did. Maybe this is what it takes to hit reset. The TV in the corner was playing some rerun of Cops, and I couldn't help laughing again. The irony was almost cinematic. When I finally shut the lights and laid down, I realized something strange. I felt lighter. Like a man who'd been carrying 1,000 pounds of polite silence and finally dropped it. The world hadn't ended. It had just gotten quieter. And somewhere out there, Clara was still probably screaming, Derek was still texting, Fiona was still swearing, and the cops were still filling out paperwork they'd never forget. But me? I was finally off duty. Tomorrow, I'd deal with lawyers, HR, and whatever fresh storm was coming. But tonight, I was just a guy in a motel bed, staring at a cracked ceiling, free for the first time in years, and grinning at the thought that my life had officially turned into a legend every cop at the station would gossip about for weeks. You'd think after detonating your marriage, detonating your career, and detonating your in-laws' sanity all in one night, you'd get at least one good night's sleep. But no, turns out guilt snores louder than Clara. I woke up at 5:43 a.m. in a motel bed that smelled like bleach and bad decisions, staring at a water stain on the ceiling that looked like Jesus shaking his head at me. My head pounded like karma was knocking. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls, 8 voicemails, and 23 unread texts, most of them from numbers I didn't save, because emotional survival requires deleting half your contact list. I scrolled through. One from Clara, we need to talk. Delete. One from Fiona, you'll pay for what you did. Delete. One from Derek, oh yeah, that guy. You've ruined everything. Screenshot. Future entertainment. And then, one from Officer Mendez. That one made me pause. Officer Mendez. Mr. Hale, this is Officer Mendez. Just wanted to make sure you're safe. We finished the report last night. Might be worth coming down to the station to clear things up before your wife does. Trust me, before your wife does. Those 4 words hit like a hangover slap. Clara probably spent all night turning the story into a Broadway tragedy where I was the villain and she was the misunderstood angel who made one small mistake with her boss. I could already picture her crying into a tissue while filing a report that made me sound like I'd crashed Thanksgiving with a flamethrower. I dragged myself out of bed, threw on the same jeans and hoodie from the night before, and stared at my reflection in the cracked mirror. Hair wild, eyes tired, soul somewhere between fury and disbelief. I looked like a man who'd lost everything except sarcasm, and maybe that was enough. The station was only 10 minutes away. The drive felt like a funeral procession for my old life. Every red light seemed to hold me hostage with my own thoughts. How I got here, how I ignored every warning sign. How the woman who once called me her forever now probably listed me as threat level, moderate. When I walked into the station, the front desk officer looked up and grinned. "Ah, Mr. Hale, the man of the hour." "Great," I said. "Glad my trauma's trending." He chuckled. "You're in luck. Mendez is in the back." "Coffee. Only if it's strong enough to erase last night," I said. He poured me something that tasted like burnt tar and regret. Mendez appeared a few minutes later, wearing the same uniform, same calm face, but with that look cops get when they know drama's about to keep paying their overtime. "Jordan," he said, motioning me into a small room. "Hell of a night." "That's one word for it," I said, taking a seat. He sat across from me, flipping open a folder. "So here's the thing. Technically, there's no criminal complaint against you. Yet. But your wife came in this morning." I snorted. "Of course she did. She gave her version of events," he said. "Wanted it on record." "Let me guess," I said. "I became aggressive, endangered her family, and emotionally traumatized the children of God." He smiled slightly. "You're not far off. She claims you verbally harassed her and created a hostile environment." Fiona backed her up. "Fiona backing someone up? That's new. Usually she's too busy throwing people under the bus." He flipped a page. "Her parents also mentioned that you made graphic public claims of infidelity." "Yeah, because that's exactly what happened." "Which," he said carefully, "they're calling slander." I leaned back. "So let me get this straight. My wife cheats on me, announces her pregnancy to my face. Her sister outed her affair. I responded in kind, and I'm the problem?" He shrugged. "Welcome to domestic disputes in suburbia." "Unbelievable," I muttered. "What happens now?" "Honestly," Mendez said, "nothing serious, unless she tries to press charges for harassment. We'll keep it on record, but it's just a paper trail at this point. You might want to file your own report, though." "A report?" "Yeah," he said. "Document your side. Helps later if things escalate. Which, based on your family's performance, they will." I sighed. "Great. My life's officially a police file." "Could be worse," he said. "Could be a Netflix documentary." That made me laugh. "Give it time." He slid a form across the table. "Just summarize the events from your perspective." I took the pen. "You sure you want me to be honest? Because if I start describing Fiona, this could turn into a roast." "Just the facts," he said, suppressing a grin. I started writing. Family gathering turned volatile due to revelation of spousal infidelity. Subject, me, responded with equal opportunity truth bomb. Result, verbal altercation, emotional combustion, arrival of law enforcement, 0 casualties except 1 potato salad. Mendez leaned over my shoulder, reading. "You're not wrong." When I finished, I slid the paper back. "There. Short, sweet, and accurate." He looked at it and said, "You ever thought about writing comedy?" "Buddy," I said, "I'm living one." He chuckled. "All right, Mr. Hale, I'll file this. But heads up, your boss Derek called the station too." I froze. "You're kidding." "Nope. Said you threatened his professional reputation. Wanted to know if he could seek legal protection from harassment." I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. "He's the guy who was sleeping with my wife, and I'm the harasser?" "Technically, you outed him in front of witnesses," Mendez said. "So legally, it's a gray area." "Gray area?" I repeated. "What's black and white about sleeping with someone else's wife?" "Don't shoot the messenger," he said. "I'm just giving you the heads up before it turns into something bigger." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Fantastic. So I've got a cheating wife, a vengeful sister-in-law, and now a morally bankrupt boss with a persecution complex. Who's next?" "Oprah." Mendez smiled sympathetically. "Look, I'm not supposed to give advice, but maybe lay low for a few days. Don't respond to calls. Don't post anything online. Let them be the loud ones." "That's easy for you to say," I said. "You didn't marry into a reality show." He shrugged. "I've seen worse." "Oh yeah?" I asked. "Worse than your wife sleeping with your boss and your in-laws turning it into a press conference." He grinned. "Once had a guy whose wife ran off with their family priest and took the church van." "Okay," I admitted. "You win." We shook hands, and as I walked out, he said, "Hey, Jordan, Yeah, for what it's worth, you're handling this better than most. Thanks, I said. That's because I ran out of options before I ran out of dignity. Outside, the sunlight was too bright, the world too normal. People walking dogs, sipping coffee, talking about weather. Meanwhile, I was walking out of a police station with the kind of story that would make Dr. Phil cancel his show out of respect. I stopped by a gas station for another coffee, because apparently, caffeine was the only thing holding my sanity hostage. As I poured it, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Mr. Hale, a smooth voice said. This is Sharon Wells. I'm an attorney representing Mr. Derek Cole. Of course she was. Good morning, Sharon, I said flatly. Is this the part where you tell me I've been served? Or are we still in the foreplay stage? She hesitated. Mr. Cole is requesting that you refrain from any further public comments regarding his personal life. He also insists that you remove any digital evidence you may have shared. Digital evidence? I said. Oh, you mean his love letters to my wife? The ones he wrote on company time using the company email system? Sure thing, Sharon. Let me just forward them to HR first for safekeeping. There was silence on the line, then a cold, professional tone. That would not be advisable. Neither is sleeping with your employee's spouse, I said. But hey, we all make bad calls. She sighed. Mr. Hale, my client wishes to avoid escalation. Tell your client I wish I'd avoided marriage, I said, and hung up. I stood there for a long moment, phone still in hand, smiling. It wasn't a happy smile. It was that kind of broken, sarcastic grin people get when they realize the worst is over and the cleanup's just beginning. When I got back to my motel room, I found a folded piece of paper slipped under the door. No envelope. Just my name written in neat, shaky handwriting. I opened it. Jordan, this is Officer Turner. We closed the case report for now, but FYI, your father-in-law came down this morning. He tried to file a restraining order on behalf of Clara. We couldn't process it since you haven't threatened anyone, but I'd still tread carefully. Of course Harold did. That man would try to sue Gravity if it embarrassed him. I tossed the note onto the nightstand, sat on the bed, and stared at the wall. My life was now officially a collection of police paperwork, voicemail threats, and lawyers' warnings. And yet, under all that chaos, I felt something new, peace. Maybe that's what happens when the storm hits hard enough. Eventually, you stop fighting the wind. I decided to write my own police report, just for me. Opened the motel notepad and scribbled at the top. Incident summary, the Great Collapse. Date, last night. Victims, common sense, dignity, potato salad. Suspects, Clara, perpetual liar. Derek, office adulterer. Fiona, unlicensed chaos agent. Witnesses, entire Hale Winters circus. Investigator, one tired husband with too much sarcasm and not enough whiskey asterisk asterisk. I added one final line. Case status, closed, pending reinvention. I tossed the pen aside and laid back on the bed, phone buzzing again somewhere under the pillow. Probably Clara, or maybe Fiona, maybe both. But for the first time in years, I didn't answer. Instead, I whispered to myself, let them write their versions. I've got mine. And as I closed my eyes, I thought, if the world wants a villain, I might as well give them one worth remembering. You ever walk into your job after your personal life has gone viral among people who still think HR is on their side? That was me on Monday morning. I'd barely made it through the revolving doors of Coal Dynamics before I could feel the whispers hitting me like Wi-Fi signals of shame. Every cubicle I passed had that low hum of gossip disguised as productivity. Papers shuffled louder than usual, screens glowed brighter, and people suddenly became fascinated with their staplers whenever I walked by. I didn't need a crystal ball to know what was going on. Someone had already told everyone everything. The receptionist, Tanya, looked at me with pity mixed with the kind of curiosity usually reserved for true crime documentaries. Morning, Jordan, she said, voice soft like she was talking to a hospice patient. Morning, Tanya, I said. How's life in the rumor mill? Her eyes darted around nervously. I didn't say anything. Of course not, I said. The walls probably did it themselves. I kept walking, pretending not to notice how half the office had their phones angled like they were checking emails while recording for TikTok. If I ended up as a trending hashtag, I at least hoped the caption was creative, something like hashtag the employee of disaster. My desk was exactly where I'd left it, right next to the break room where people pretended to refill their coffee just to eavesdrop. My inbox had 57 new messages, and half were from people who hadn't spoken to me since 2019. One subject line read, "Are you okay, bro?" Another said, "Heard you had a rough weekend. Let's grab lunch." Sure, now they cared. I powered up my computer, fully expecting my access to be revoked. Nope, it still worked. Either HR hadn't caught up yet, or Derek was too busy explaining to his wife why team building now came with ultrasound photos. I was halfway through deleting pity emails when I heard the sound that could make any grown man's soul shrivel. Jordan, in my office. Now, Derek's voice, smooth, commanding, and currently trembling with rage. I stood up, straightened my tie like a man heading to his own execution, and walked toward the corner office where the glass walls were now a stage for humiliation. The door slammed shut behind me. Derek was standing by the window, jaw tight, veins visible. "You humiliated me in front of everyone," he said. I leaned on the chair across from him. "Oh, you mean the family party or this office? Hard to keep track." "This isn't a joke, Jordan," he snapped. "Do you have any idea how bad this looks for me? For the company?" I crossed my arms. "Probably as bad as it looked when you were sending love emails from your company laptop. Want me to forward those to legal or just print them for decoration?" His eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare." "Buddy," I said, smirking, "I've already dared. You know those emails where you called her my sweet distraction? HR's going to love that one." Very poetic. He took a step closer. "You think you can blackmail me?" I shrugged. "I think I can remind you that cheating with an employee's spouse violates half the policies you wrote." "You're fired," he spat. "Cool," I said casually, placing a USB stick on his desk. "But before you make it official, maybe you should plug this in. It's got copies of all your love letters. I figured you'd want souvenirs before IT wipes your drive." He didn't touch it, just stared at me, jaw clenching so tight I could hear the enamel cracking. "Jordan," he said slowly, "you've made a mistake. I can ruin you." I laughed. "Buddy, my wife already beat you to it. The rest is just bonus material." He glared at me. "You think this makes you some kind of hero? You're a joke." "No," I said, smiling. "I'm an employee who finally read the fine print. Turns out, loyalty doesn't pay as well as leverage." He pointed at the door. "Get out before I have security remove you." I stood, leaned across the desk, and said, "No need. I've already removed myself from the company's Slack. But you might want to log out of your own before HR does it for you." As I left, Tanya pretended to look busy while watching every second of my walk back through the office. I swear someone whispered, "He actually did it." Another whispered, "Legend." Honestly, I kind of liked that one. Halfway to the elevator, I passed Greg from accounting, who gave me a subtle thumbs up. "Heard you dropped the boss like a mixtape," he said under his breath. "Something like that," I said. Stay tuned for the remix. The elevator doors closed behind me, and as they did, I caught one last glimpse of Derek through the glass wall, standing there, shoulders tense, staring down at that USB like it was a live grenade. Outside, the morning sun hit my face, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel angry. I felt free, like the final act of a disaster movie when the hero walks away from the explosion without looking back. I loosened my tie, took a deep breath, and laughed out loud in the middle of the sidewalk. A few people looked at me like I'd lost it. They weren't wrong, but losing it was starting to feel a lot like winning. I grabbed coffee from the cart on the corner, the same one I used to stop at every morning when I still cared about showing up early. The barista, a guy named Alex, raised an eyebrow. "You look different, man." "Yeah," I said. I stopped pretending life's fine. "About time," he said, handing me the cup. "This one's on me." "Careful," I said. "I might start thinking I'm famous." He grinned. "Dude, you're trending on the company subreddit. They're calling you the truth bomber." I nearly spit out my coffee laughing. "The what?" "Yup. Apparently, someone leaked what happened at that party. You're a legend." "Fantastic," I said. All I ever wanted was internet fame for trauma. When I got home, well, to the motel I was calling home, the adrenaline started to wear off. I tossed my jacket on the chair, turned on the TV for noise, and checked my email. Sure enough, HR had sent one titled, "Urgent, Pending Investigation." I opened it, read the first two lines, and closed it again. I didn't even care. They could investigate all they wanted. The truth had already done the heavy lifting. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Lily. Lily, heard about work. Are you okay? Me. Depends on your definition. I'm jobless, but undefeated. Lily, you're insane. Me. It's hereditary. Then she sent a photo of a positive pregnancy test with a message, proof for the doubters. I stared at it for a long time. Not sadness, not pride, just that weird mix of disbelief and closure. The irony of my boss and my wife both ending up in scandal while his niece carried my child wasn't lost on me. It was poetic in a morally questionable way. I typed back, "Don't worry. Whatever happens, I've got your back." Her reply came instantly. "You already proved that." I set my phone down and exhaled. For the first time, it didn't feel like everything was falling apart. It felt like something new was beginning, something quieter, sharper, cleaner. As the sun dipped outside the motel blinds, I raised my coffee cup toward the TV and whispered, "To fresh starts, and the poor HR rep who has to read Derek's emails tomorrow." Then I laughed again, long and hard, because sometimes victory doesn't look like a trophy. It looks like walking away from the office fire you didn't start, but definitely helped finish. If there's one universal truth about family drama, it's that it doesn't end when the shouting does. It just goes underground, like lava waiting for its next scenic eruption. After I walked out of Coal Dynamics with my metaphorical mic drop still echoing through the office hallways, I expected at least a day or two of peace. Maybe a quiet evening, maybe some chicken wings, maybe an uninterrupted nap. What I got instead was a string of text messages that could have powered a telenovela marathon. Clara, Fiona, and Evelyn had apparently formed some kind of crisis PR team overnight, and I was public enemy number one. The first message came from Clara, "You've destroyed everything I built." The second from Fiona, "You better pray I don't sue you." The third from Evelyn, in all caps because she texts like she's sending telegrams, "You have shamed this family and will answer to God." I replied to none of them, because at that point, what was left to say? I'd already given them the truth. They just didn't like the way it was plated. But later that afternoon, as I sat in my motel room eating fries that tasted like battery acid, my phone buzzed again, this time with a call from an unknown number. Normally, I'd let that go to voicemail, but something told me this one was worth the misery. "Jordan," a quiet voice said. "Lily," I sighed. "Please tell me this isn't about another family group chat." She laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carries exhaustion and defiance at the same time. "You're practically famous now. My mom's been on the phone all morning, crying to anyone who'll listen. Apparently, you seduced me to get revenge on Clara." By the time I got there, the sun was setting behind the rows of identical houses, casting everything in that suburban golden light that makes even dysfunction look cinematic. I parked across the street, took a deep breath, and reminded myself that I had already survived worse, like marriage counseling with a woman who thought silence was foreplay. When I walked through the front door, the room fell silent. It was like walking into a courtroom where everyone had already decided the verdict. Evelyn sat at the head of the table clutching her Bible like a weapon. Harold stood beside her, arms crossed, face red enough to power a stoplight. Fiona was pacing, phone in hand, whispering to someone, probably a lawyer who regretted answering. Clara was sitting near the fireplace, mascara perfect this time, clearly rehearsed for her role as the wounded wife. "Jordan," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with righteous fury, "we didn't invite you." "Then it's a good thing I don't need an invitation," I said, shutting the door behind me. "This feels like family business, and apparently, I'm still the headline." Fiona spun around, pointing at me. "You've got nerve showing your face here." "Yeah," I said, "but not as much nerve as your boss showing up at my wedding anniversary last year and flirting with my wife in front of everyone." Clara gasped. "That's not fair." "Oh, you're right," I said. "Fair would have been you telling me before you started playing The Office, Adultery Edition." Harold slammed his hand on the table. "You will not speak that way to my daughter." "Which one?" I asked. "The adulterer or the drama queen?" Fiona lunged forward, but Harold held her back. Evelyn looked like she wanted to exorcise me. "You've brought nothing but chaos into our home," she said. "Correction," I replied. "I brought the truth. The chaos was already living here rent-free." Clara stood, tears welling up. "Why can't you just stop?" "I've apologized." I laughed. "You apologized to him, Clara, the man you cheated with. Not to me. You cried because you got caught. Not because you're sorry. She flinched. You're cruel. No, I said quietly. I'm finally honest. You've spent years painting me as the quiet, boring husband, the man who doesn't get it. Well, I get it now. I just don't want it anymore. Fiona rolled her eyes. Oh, please, spare us the victim speech. I turned to her. Fiona, you've been gossiping about everyone in this family for a decade. If hypocrisy burned calories, you'd be invisible. That shut her up. Harold tried to recover control. Enough. We're here to talk about the future. Future? I repeated. There isn't one. Clara can have hers with Derek. You can all spin whatever story helps you sleep at night. I'm out. Evelyn's voice cracked. And what about the baby? That hit harder than I expected. The baby? I said. You mean the one that isn't mine? She glared at me. You don't know that for sure. I looked right at Clara. Do I? She couldn't answer. Her silence told me everything. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Lily, bless her, stepped out from the kitchen where she'd been quietly standing. Everyone, stop. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried enough power to make even Evelyn blink. This has gone too far, she said. You're blaming Jordan for everything when the truth is, you all helped make this mess. Mom, you've spent your whole life judging everyone. Aunt Clara, you lied to everyone who loved you. Grandpa, you ignore problems until they explode. And Grandma, you act like God personally outsourced judgment to you. Fiona gasped. Lily, no, she said firmly. You don't get to play innocent. You raised me in a house that cared more about appearances than honesty. Jordan didn't destroy this family. You did. The room went silent again, the kind of silence that feels like a verdict. Clara sat down, staring at the floor. Evelyn's lip trembled. Harold looked old. Fiona opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I exhaled slowly. Well, I said, that was better than therapy. Lily shot me a look. Don't ruin it. Sorry, I said. Force of habit. Evelyn stood, voice breaking. You think you're all so righteous. You think telling the truth makes you heroes. But all I see are broken people too proud to repent. I shrugged. Repentance is easier when you're not pretending. Fiona suddenly burst out laughing, a short, bitter sound. God, we're all insane. For once, I said, we agree. And just like that, the fight drained out of the room. No more shouting, no more posturing. Just exhaustion, the collective hangover of years of lies finally laid bare. After a long moment, I walked toward the door. I'm done, I said softly. You can keep your family drama, your phone calls, your guilt. I'm officially resigning from the Hale Winters circus. Clara looked up. Jordan, please, where will you go? Somewhere quiet, I said. Preferably a place without your mother. That earned a weak laugh from Lily. I turned to her. You okay? She nodded. Better than I've been in years. Good, I said. Then maybe something good came out of all this. As I stepped outside, the air felt lighter. Behind me, voices started again, softer this time, less venomous, like the start of healing or maybe just the tired sigh of people realizing the show was over. I didn't know. I didn't care. Walking to my car, I thought about everything I'd lost, my marriage, my job, my reputation. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Free from pretending, from playing the quiet husband, from living in a house where love had turned into obligation. When I drove away, the streetlights flickered on, one by one, guiding me down a road that finally felt like mine again. The phone buzzed once more, another message from Clara, probably, but I didn't look. I just turned up the radio, rolled down the window, and said to myself, that's enough noise for one lifetime. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't scare me. It felt earned. It's funny how fast people's memories turn selective once karma starts clocking in for overtime. 1 week after I left that house of horrors, the Hale Winters family intervention, that felt more like an exorcism. Everything started unraveling faster than a knockoff sweater. It was like life had finally switched teams and decided to start rooting for me. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't need to. People like Derek Cole and Clara Hale had built their lives on smoke and mirrors. I just opened a window. It began with an email from HR. Not to me. Those geniuses wouldn't dare put anything that useful in writing, but to half the company. Someone, probably Tanya the receptionist turned office gossip, leaked Derek's private investigation report. I was minding my own business at the motel, scrolling through job listings and eating fries shaped like sadness, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. At first, I thought Fiona had finally found a lawyer unhinged enough to take her emotional damages case. But then I saw the subject line. Internal inquiry, conduct violation, confidential. There it was, Derek's name, bolded at the top, with phrases like improper workplace relationships, abuse of authority, and my personal favorite, misuse of company property. The company property, by the way, included the corporate SUV he'd taken Clara to that leadership retreat in. Nothing says romance like breaking both marital and corporate policy at the same time. The email spread faster than gossip at a baby shower. By lunchtime, Derek Gate was trending on the office Slack channel. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just laughed. Not because it was funny, though it kind of was, but because I didn't have to do a damn thing. I'd walked out, left that USB on his desk, and Karma handled the rest like a professional hitman. Tanya texted me later that day. You didn't hear it from me, but he's been put on leave. HR called it mutual separation, but you know what that means. Yeah. Translation. They tossed him out the door with a confidentiality agreement duct taped to his ego. And Clara? Oh, she tried to play damage control. Apparently, she marched into HR demanding to clear her name. The irony is she wasn't even an employee there. She was just a woman who couldn't stand losing her access to free coffee and whispered validation. According to Tanya, she cried, shouted, and even blamed me for fabricating everything. HR didn't care. They had Derek's company emails, timestamps, hotel receipts, the kind of evidence that would make a divorce lawyer's pupils dilate. By Friday, Derek's office was empty. His nameplate gone, his corner desk cleared out, his framed Employee of the Year photo quietly removed from the wall. Tanya sent me a picture of the empty room with the caption, "Looks like the king's lost his castle." I replied, he should have invested in better foundations. Still, I didn't celebrate. Not yet. See, I'd been around long enough to know that just because someone else's ship sinks doesn't mean you automatically float. I was unemployed, semi-homeless, and running dangerously low on the kind of optimism you can't buy at a gas station. But somewhere between the quiet and the chaos, I realized something. I wasn't scared anymore. For the first time in 12 years, my life wasn't about cleaning up someone else's mess. I could actually build my own. So I did. I started with what I knew best: project management, logistics, fixing the kind of messes people like Derek usually caused. I reached out to a few contacts who still respected me, even after the public meltdown. One of them, an old coworker named Mason, was now running a mid-sized consulting firm out of Denver. He'd heard the gossip, of course, everyone had, but he didn't judge. Man, I always said Derek was too pretty to be ethical, he told me. You want work? I got contracts piling up. And just like that, I was back. Not in some cubicle pretending to respect people who didn't earn it, but on my own terms. I started as a contractor, managing logistics for construction startups, then helping small firms streamline their operations. I wasn't getting rich, but I was finally sleeping through the night, which felt like winning the lottery. Meanwhile, Clara's world was burning like a scented candle left unattended. Fiona's daughter Lily told me everything. Apparently, the family had split into two warring factions, Team Clara and Team Fiona. Team Clara believed I was a manipulative monster who'd ruined a good woman's life. Team Fiona believed Clara was Satan in a sundress. Aunt Margaret switched sides 3 times in 1 week, depending on who brought her wine. Evelyn tried to keep peace by quoting scripture until even God was like, "Ma'am, please." Lily called me one night, her voice soft but tired. "They're exhausting," she said. "I can't stay here anymore." "Then don't," I said. "You're an adult. Start over." "With what money?" she asked. I hesitated for a second, then said, "I'll help you. Not because of this situation. Because you deserve a chance." There was a pause. "Jordan," she whispered, "you don't have to fix everything." "I know," I said, "but sometimes helping someone else feels less like fixing and more like healing." She didn't answer for a long time. Then she said, "You're a better man than they ever gave you credit for." "Yeah, well," I replied, "my Yelp reviews are terrible." A week later, Lily moved out. Fiona tried to sue me for influence and interference, but even her lawyer looked embarrassed writing it down. She dropped it when Clara's affair became public record in Derek's termination file. The hypocrisy was too thick to swim in. Then came the kicker. Clara called me. I almost didn't pick up. Almost. But curiosity's a cruel thing. Jordan, she said softly, I just wanted to apologize. I laughed. For what? The cheating, the lying, or the part where you tried to turn your family into my firing squad? She sighed. I didn't mean for things to get so bad. Clara, bad was when you slept with my boss. Everything after that was just bonus content. I miss you, she said. You don't have to believe me, but I do. That's funny, I said. Because I stopped missing you the day I realized peace doesn't argue back. Can't we talk? She pleaded. I just want to explain. Explain what? I said. That you picked a guy who tanked both his career and yours? That your family's at war over your choices? Or that you're still pretending to be the victim? Jordan, please. Clara, I interrupted. If loyalty were Wi-Fi, you'd still be buffering. There was silence on the line, just her shaky breath. Then she said, I hope one day you forgive me. I took a deep breath, staring at the motel ceiling. I already did, I said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't come with a reunion tour. I hung up, and for the first time, there was no guilt. No what if. Just peace. 2 months later, Derek's name resurfaced again, this time in the business section of a local paper. Headline: Former executive faces ethics investigation and divorce proceedings. His wife had left him, taking half his assets in their lake house. The article mentioned potential criminal charges related to corporate fraud. Apparently, he'd been moving funds around to cover the costs of his little work trips. I didn't smile. Okay, maybe I smiled a little. By spring, I had a small office downtown, a desk, a decent coffee machine, and clients who actually paid on time. Mason offered to make me a partner. I said no. I wasn't building an empire. I was rebuilding myself. Slow, steady, unglamorous. One morning, I walked to the window with my coffee and looked out over the city, buses honking, people hurrying, sunlight catching on glass towers. The world was still messy, but it was mine again. And then, like clockwork, life decided to give me one last reminder that closure isn't always quiet. My phone buzzed with a text from Tanya. FYI, Derek's suing the company for wrongful termination. They're countering with your evidence. HR wants your statement. I laughed so hard I spilled coffee on my shirt. That night, I sent HR every file I had. Emails, receipts, the whole treasure chest. Within a week, Derek's lawsuit was dead in the water. He went from suing for damages to begging for settlement. I didn't get a thank you note, but I didn't need one. His career was done. The best part? HR quietly offered me a consulting gig. Internal ethics review, they called it. Basically, they wanted the guy who exposed their golden boy to help rebuild the system he broke. The irony was delicious. I accepted, of course, but only after making sure the job title read independent contractor. I'd learned my lesson about loyalty contracts. And that's how the comeback started. Not with revenge, not with a grand speech, but with something simpler. Choice. My choice. To stop explaining, to stop apologizing, to stop letting people write my story for me. These days, when people ask about the whole saga, I tell them the truth. Yeah, it happened, I say. Yeah, it was ugly. But sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is ruin you, because then you finally start building from scratch. And when they ask about Clara, I shrug. She got what she wanted, I say. A new life. It just came with the fine print she didn't read. As for me, I got mine too. Not flashy, not loud, just calm. The kind of calm that used to scare me. The kind that feels earned. And that's the thing about comebacks. They're not about proving anyone wrong. They're about proving to yourself that you were never as broken as they hoped. Here's the thing about surviving a public disaster. You start expecting fireworks when the credits roll, but all you get is quiet. Real, bone-deep quiet. The kind that makes you wonder if you're finally at peace or just in the eye of another storm. By the time Derek Cole's name was officially dragged through the business news, and Clara's social circle quietly deleted her from their wine night group chats, I thought maybe, just maybe, my story had reached the last page. But life, being the sarcastic comedian it is, doesn't let you close the book that easily. It keeps writing in the margins. The irony hit first thing that Monday morning. I was at my small new office, barely 3 rooms and a coffee machine that made noises like it was dying in protest, when my inbox pinged with a familiar subject line. Cole Dynamics, internal audit follow-up. It was from HR, the same department that once ignored my emails about Derek's unprofessional familiarity. Now, suddenly, I was the guy they wanted to consult on corporate ethics. Life's full-circle moments are like bad punchlines. They're hilarious and horrifying at the same time. I accepted, of course. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about walking back into that building not as the betrayed husband or the expendable employee, but as the man who'd burned down the circus and rebuilt his own tent. The day I stepped through those glass doors again, people looked at me like I'd risen from the dead with Wi-Fi connection. Tanya nearly dropped her coffee when she saw me. "You're back?" she whispered, like saying it too loud might trigger an earthquake. "Temporarily," I said, adjusting my tie. "Think of me as quality control, for karma." She grinned, a little sheepishly. "You know everyone's still talking about you, right? The Cole Chronicles. HR even used your story in their new ethics training." I smirked. They should send me royalties. The office had changed. New boss, new posters about integrity, and a few too many forced smiles. Derek's name was never spoken, like Voldemort with a LinkedIn profile. His desk was now occupied by a woman named Erica, who actually greeted people without flirting. Progress. Still, the ghosts lingered. Every meeting room, every hallway carried echoes of things I didn't want to remember: the whispered laughter, the perfume that used to announce Clara's arrival, the way Derek used to clap me on the back like we were friends. But the difference now was simple. It didn't hurt anymore. It just existed. Like an old scar you forget about until someone asks what happened. The consulting gig lasted 6 months. Long enough to watch the company turn over its entire top management. Long enough to see Derek's name quietly scrubbed from every project he ever led. And long enough for me to realize I didn't need that world anymore. When my contract ended, HR begged me to stay. I told them, "No thanks. I've learned that being indispensable to the wrong people isn't a compliment. It's a trap." After that, I poured everything into my own work. My small consulting business grew faster than I expected. Turns out, a man with nothing left to lose can be dangerously productive. Clients liked that I didn't sugarcoat things. I told CEOs their systems were broken and employees their leaders were frauds, and somehow, they paid me more for the honesty. Irony again. The same bluntness that once got me in trouble now paid my mortgage. One afternoon, a few months later, I was sitting in my office reviewing invoices when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a few seconds, debating whether to answer. Curiosity won. "Jordan Hale," a calm, familiar voice said. I recognized it immediately. Derek. For a moment, I just stared out the window, the city buzzing beneath me, the sound of cars and wind mixing like background music. "You've got nerve calling me," I said finally. "I know," he said, his tone heavy. "I just needed to say something." "Let me guess," I said. "You found God? You're on a self-discovery journey? You want forgiveness?" He sighed. "I wanted to apologize." I laughed quietly. "Apology accepted, in advance. Saves time." "I'm serious," he said. "Everything's gone. The job, the money, my wife filed for divorce. I even lost the lake house." "Tragic," I said flatly. "Maybe you can write a memoir. From corner office to couch surfing." He ignored the jab. "I know I ruined a lot. And I know you probably hate me, but I wanted you to know that Clara's struggling. She's been through." "Don't," I cut in. "Don't you dare play messenger for her. She didn't ask me to call," he said. "I just thought you'd want to know." "What I want," I said, "is to never hear her name again. You two made your choices. You burned the bridge, built a gazebo on the ashes, and then hosted a pity party. I RSVP'd no." He was silent for a while, then said, "You really haven't changed." "Wrong," I said. "I finally have." I hung up, and I swear, the moment I did, I felt something lift off me. Maybe it was closure, maybe it was pride, maybe it was just relief that I didn't owe anyone anything anymore. A few weeks later, I got an email from Lily. She'd moved out of state, new apartment, new job, and apparently a healthy baby boy. She sent a photo. Big eyes, curious face, a little tuft of dark hair. "Meet Noah," she wrote. "He's got your sarcasm already. Thank you for helping me start over." I mean it. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not as a father, not as a savior, but as a man who'd somehow helped something good grow out of chaos. I wired her some money the next day. No note, no lecture. Just quiet support. She didn't owe me gratitude, and I didn't need credit. That was the difference between then and now. I'd finally learned the art of letting things be what they were. Then came the most unexpected twist of all. I was at a networking event downtown, the kind of thing where everyone pretends to care about innovation, while secretly counting how many shrimp cocktails they can grab before someone notices. I was mid-conversation with a guy from a software startup when I heard a voice behind me say, "Jordan." I turned, and there she was. Clara. If I'd seen her on a street corner, I might have walked right past. She looked smaller, the kind of tired that no spa package fixes. Still beautiful, but hollow around the edges. She smiled weakly. "Hi." I blinked. "You've got to be kidding me. I didn't know you'd be here," she said quickly. Can we talk?" "I'm pretty sure we used up our talk quota around the time you blew up our marriage," I said, sipping my drink. "I deserve that," she admitted. "But please, Jordan, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, and maybe out of morbid curiosity, I nodded. We stepped out to the balcony, away from the noise. The city lights stretched beneath us, 1,000 tiny reminders that the world keeps spinning whether you heal or not. She exhaled. "I heard about Derek." "Hard not to," I said. "He's basically a cautionary tale now." Her eyes flickered. "And you're doing well." "I am," I said simply. She nodded, biting her lip. "I'm glad. Really. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For all of it." "I already know," I said. "You said it before." "This time I mean it," she said softly. "Back then I was angry. I was lost. I thought you stopped loving me." I laughed bitterly. "You thought wrong. I stopped tolerating you. There's a difference." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't break. "I was selfish. I know that now. I wanted excitement. I wanted someone to make me feel seen. But I see now that what I had with you was the real thing, and I threw it away." For a long moment, I said nothing. The wind picked up, her hair blowing across her face like some tragic movie scene, and for once, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel love, either. Just distance. "Clara," I said quietly, "I don't hate you. I don't even think about you most days. But that's the point. You taught me the kind of peace that comes after the fire, when there's nothing left to save." She swallowed. "So that's it." "That's it," I said. "You'll go your way, I'll go mine. And maybe one day, when people mention your name, I won't remember the worst parts. But I won't ever forget the lesson." She nodded slowly. "You always were too good at turning pain into philosophy." "I had a lot of practice," I said. We stood there for a few seconds in silence. Then she said, "Take care of yourself, Jordan." "I already am," I said and walked away. That was the last time I saw her. Months passed. Seasons shifted. My consulting business flourished, and for once, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was moving toward it, toward balance, toward self-respect, toward the version of me I'd been before I started handing out pieces of my soul for free. Sometimes, when the city's quiet at night and I'm sitting on my balcony with a drink, I think about everything that happened. The party, the police, the fallout, the screaming. And every time, the same line comes to mind. Sometimes, karma doesn't need your help. It just asks for patience and popcorn. That's what life became after all the noise. Patience and popcorn. Watching people reveal who they really are, learning not to intervene. It's both humbling and hilarious. Last week, I got a postcard from Lily. No return address, just a photo of a toddler holding a toy car and the words, "He's walking now." I smiled, placed it on my fridge, and thought, good. Keep walking, kid. Don't ever look back. As for me, I still work too much, still drink my coffee black, still talk to myself like the world's most sarcastic therapist. But when people ask why I don't date anymore, I just grin and say, because I already survived a soap opera, and sequels usually suck. The truth is, I'm not afraid of love. I'm just not desperate for it anymore. I found something better, peace that doesn't ask for permission. And maybe that's the ultimate irony. After years of being the punchline in other people's stories, I finally became the author of my own. Not perfect, not polished, but honest. And in this world, that's rarer than forgiveness.